Have you ever tried to remember your childhood and realized large pieces feel strangely unclear? Not gone, not dark, just vague. You remember fragments, the color of a classroom wall, a birthday cake, the sound of a door closing, but entire years feel foggy, like watching an old movie with missing scenes. And when someone tells a story about you that you don't remember, you wonder, was I even there? Is this normal? Or is something wrong with your memory? So today, we're exploring how memory actually works, and why your brain may be functioning exactly as it was designed to. You know this feeling if your childhood doesn't unfold like a clear story, but more like scattered photographs. There are flashes, a teacher's face, the smell of your grandmother's kitchen, the pattern on your bedroom wallpaper. But when you try to place yourself inside those memories, they feel distant, almost like you're watching someone else's life. Sometimes your siblings remember things you don't. They laugh about moments that feel completely foreign to you. You nod along, unsure if you forgot or just experienced it differently. You might remember events, but not how you felt about them. You know something happened, but the emotional tone is muted, neutral, like reading facts from a textbook. Or maybe entire stretches, ages 7 to 10, 11 to 14, feel compressed into a blur. No strong images, no clear timeline. Just a vague sense of, that was childhood. And when you realize the fog is there, you start wondering why. Is this just how memory works? Or should you be concerned? Before your mind jumps to conclusions, let's understand something important about how human memory actually functions. Because of most of what you're experiencing, completely normal, clear. The first thing you need to know, your brain was never designed to remember everything. Memory isn't a video recording. It's not a hard drive storing every moment in chronological order. Memory is selective, reconstructive, and constantly changing. Your brain prioritizes what feels important, emotionally charged moments, novel experiences, and information relevant to your survival and identity. Everything else, it fades. Not because something went wrong, but because that's how the system is supposed to work. And when it comes to childhood specifically, there are clear scientific reasons why those years feel foggier than your teenage or adult memories. Now we're delving into the science of childhood memory. Why does it fade? What is normal? What is not? And how to understand your past without having perfect recall. Because the goal isn't to recover every moment. The goal is to understand how memory works, so you can stop wondering if something's wrong with you. So let's begin with the most common reason why childhood feels blurry. Most people cannot clearly remember experiences before age 6 or 7, not because something went wrong, because the brain simply wasn't fully equipped yet. This is called childhood amnesia, and it's universal. The hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for forming long-term autobiographical memories, is still developing throughout early childhood. You were living experiences intensely, but your brain didn't yet have the full wiring to organize them into stable, retrievable narratives. Memory also requires language. The more vocabulary you have, the more precisely you can encode what happens to you. Before your language skills fully developed, your experiences were stored more as sensations, images, and emotions, but without the detailed narrative structure that makes memories easy to recall later. There's another factor, identity. To remember something as my experience, you need a developed sense of self. Young children are still forming that sense of who they are. They experience life intensely, but without a structured story around it. So when early childhood feels blank, that's not a red flag, that's biology. Some fog is simply developmental. In fact, your brain regularly reorganizes and prunes memories as you grow. It prioritizes what's useful for your current life and identity, and lets go of what isn't. So the first truth is this: you're not strange for not remembering everything. That part is completely human. But here's where it gets more nuanced. When memory blur extends beyond early childhood, when it affects years you should reasonably remember, there are other explanations worth understanding, and they're not as dramatic as you might think. So let's start with understanding how your brain actually decides what to remember and what to let go. Your brain doesn't store everything equally. It stores what feels emotionally significant. Positive experiences with strong emotion, birthday parties, family vacations, exciting achievements, those tend to stick. Negative experiences with strong emotion, embarrassing moments, conflicts, losses, those also stick. But neutral, repetitive experiences, your brain lets those fade because the brain is efficient. It doesn't store every ordinary Tuesday afternoon, every routine car ride, every quiet evening at home. It keeps what feels important and compresses the rest. So if your childhood was relatively stable, predictable, and calm, large stretches may feel uneventful, and uneventful doesn't encode strongly. This is why people who had dramatic childhoods, lots of moves, big changes, intense experiences, often have sharper memories. Not because their memory is better, but because their experiences were more emotionally charged, more novel, more significant to the brain's priority system. If your childhood felt routine, safe, and consistent, that's actually a good thing. But it also means fewer strong memory anchors. Calm doesn't always leave vivid imprints. There's another factor that affects how memories form: attention. If you spent your childhood lost in books, daydreaming, playing imaginative games, you were deeply engaged internally, but you may have been less focused on encoding the external details of those years. So, later, when you try to remember what happened, you remember how you felt, but not necessarily the specific events. That's not a flaw, that's just where your attention was. And finally, stress affects memory too, but not the way most people think. So what does stress really do to your childhood memories? Let's look at what science tells us. Stress and memory have a complex relationship. Moderate stress can actually enhance memory. That's why you remember emotionally intense moments clearly. Your brain tags them as important. But chronic, ongoing stress, that can interfere with how clearly memories are encoded. When you experience prolonged stress, especially as a child, your body releases cortisol. In manageable amounts, cortisol helps you respond to challenges. But when stress becomes constant, it affects the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for organizing memory into coherent timelines. Under sustained stress, experiences may still be stored, but not as clear, detailed narratives. They're stored more emotionally, more fragmentedly. This doesn't require dramatic events. It can be subtle. Living in a household with frequent tension, feeling like you had to monitor the emotional temperature of the room, being in an environment where expressing emotions wasn't welcomed, trying to be the good kid to keep peace. If your childhood included ongoing unpredictability or emotional restraint, your brain may have focused on functioning day to day, rather than creating detailed memory records. That's not damage, that's adaptation. Your brain prioritized what it needed to: staying connected, staying safe, staying functional. Sometimes that means memory formation takes a back seat. But here's what's important. Even when the narrative feels unclear, you still learned. You learned how relationships work, how to read emotions, how to navigate your environment. Those lessons may not show up as vivid memories, but they show up in how you relate to the world today. Which brings us to something crucial. Even when you don't remember specific moments, you remember patterns. You may not recall exact conversations, but you know how conflict felt in your home. You may not remember being criticized, but you notice how sensitive you are to feedback now. You may not remember feeling alone, but you recognize how hard it is to ask for help. This is because memory isn't just stored as images and stories. It's stored as learned responses. If emotional expression wasn't welcomed in your childhood, you learned restraint, even if you don't remember specific moments of being told to be quiet. If approval felt inconsistent, you learned to monitor for signs of acceptance, even if you can't point to exact incidents. If independence was emphasized, you learned self-reliance, even without remembering being taught it explicitly. These patterns shape you, not because of single traumatic events, but through repeated experiences that taught your nervous system how the world works. So instead of asking, "What happened?" try asking, "What did I learn?" You don't need perfect memory to understand your patterns. You just need to notice how you respond now, and gently ask where that response might have come from. Ask yourself, what happened when I expressed strong emotions as a child? Was I comforted? Was I told to calm down? Was I left alone to process it? What did affection look like in my family? Was it verbal, physical, reserved, conditional on behavior? How did my family handle mistakes? Were they treated as learning opportunities or as sources of shame? These questions don't demand perfect recall. They invite pattern awareness. And pattern awareness is often more useful than memory recovery, because healing doesn't require remembering every detail. It requires understanding how you learn to move through the world and deciding if those patterns still serve you. So when should blurry childhood memories be a concern? Most of the time, they're not. But there are some signs that might be worth exploring further, ideally with a mental health professional. Clear, listing with care. If you have large gaps in memory combined with difficulty forming stable relationships, intense emotional reactions that feel disproportionate to current situations, persistent feelings of detachment or numbness, recurring nightmares or intrusive thoughts, and a sense that something significant happened but you can't access it. These patterns, not the memory gaps alone, might suggest that talking to a therapist could be helpful, not to recover memories. Current research shows that memory recovery techniques can be unreliable and even create false memories. But to understand your present reactions, to build skills for emotional regulation, to create safety in your current life, therapy isn't about excavating the past. It's about understanding patterns and building new ones. If you're functioning well, forming healthy relationships, and feeling generally stable, then memory fog alone is not a red flag. It's just how your particular brain organized your particular childhood. But if you notice patterns that feel difficult, hypervigilance, emotional avoidance, relationship struggles, those are worth addressing. Not because of what you can't remember, but because of how you're experiencing life now. The focus should always be, what do I need now? Not, what am I missing from then? Empowering, practical guidance. If your childhood feels blurry, the healthiest response isn't to force memory. It's to practice gentle self-understanding. Instead of digging for buried moments, notice present patterns. How do you respond to conflict? Do you freeze, leave, fight, fawn? How do you handle closeness? Do you crave it, fear it, feel both at once? How do you process emotions? Do you express them easily, suppress them, feel confused by them? These present-day responses give you information, even without perfect memory. And once you understand your patterns, you can start choosing new ones. Encouraging, each example grounded. If you notice you avoid conflict, you can practice staying present during disagreement. If you notice you struggle to ask for help, you can practice small requests with safe people. If you notice you're hyper-independent, you can experiment with letting others support you. Growth doesn't require excavating every childhood detail. It requires awareness, compassion, and small, intentional shifts. Here's a practice that can help. Instead of asking, "Why don't I remember?" which creates anxiety and pressure, try asking, "What do I need to feel safe now?" That question is far more useful, because the past shaped you, but the present is where you have agency. You can't change what happened, but you can change how you relate to yourself today. You can offer yourself the patience, validation, and gentleness that younger you may not have consistently received. That's not about blame, it's about compassion. Compassion for the child you were, and compassion for the adult you're becoming. So if your childhood feels blurry, pause before you judge it. Pause before you assume something is deeply wrong. Memory naturally fades. The brain prioritizes what feels significant and lets go of the rest. Early childhood is especially foggy because your brain wasn't fully developed yet. Calm, routine childhoods leave fewer dramatic memory anchors than chaotic ones. Stress can affect how clearly memories form, but it doesn't mean you were damaged. And even without clear memories, you still learned. You absorbed patterns. You developed ways of being in the world. Those patterns are still with you. Some serve you well, some you're ready to outgrow. But you don't need perfect memory to understand yourself. You just need curiosity, gentleness, willingness to notice. Your brain did what it was designed to do, keep you functional, keep you moving forward. It didn't fail you, it adapted. And now, as an adult, you get to decide what comes next. Not by excavating every forgotten moment, but by building a present so safe, so grounded, that the past doesn't need to dominate your attention. That's the work. Not memory recovery, presence, safety, compassion, and that begins now. So tell me, does your childhood feel clear or foggy? And when you think about it, what's the first feeling that comes up? Drop your answer in the comments. You're not alone in this. And if you found this helpful, subscribe to Unfelt, where we explore the psychology of what you feel but can't always name. We break down patterns. We explain reactions. We help you understand yourself without judgment. If that sounds like something you need, you're in the right place. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. The younger version of you is still there, quietly shaping how you move through the world. and they deserve your compassion.